You know those really hard, dense reading comprehension questions in the English section of the SAT? The ones where you have to reread over and over again because you just can't understand what they're saying? Wouldn't it be nice if you just magically got a superpower that allowed you to understand these types of passages the first time you read them, every single time, understand them perfectly, and when you're going through the answer choices, the wrong answer choices seem extremely obvious to you that they're wrong, and the correct answer, you can just select that with 100% confidence, move on to the next question every single time? I'm about to show you how you can get that superpower. There are two phases in the process of solving a reading comprehension question. There's reading the passage, and then there's going through the answer choices. And when you're reading the passage, there are three things you have to do that you're probably currently not doing. Okay, first thing is what I like to call chunking. And this is every single 3 or 5 words, you have to make sure you understand them before you move on to the next chunk or the next 3 or 5 words. So chunking in 3 to 5 words. Okay. The second thing is predicting the passage. Okay, so while you are chunking, while you're reading the passage, you want to constantly be predicting what the passage is going to say next. Okay, you want to at least understand the logic of the passage, the flow where it's going, and try to predict what's coming next, always. Okay, the third thing is predicting the correct answer. So after you finish reading the passage, you should be able to predict what the correct answer is going to be. It doesn't have to be correct, but you should be able to make a decent prediction of what you think the right answer is going to be before you even look at the answer choices. And when going for the answer choices, there's only one thing that you have to keep in mind, and that's going word by word. And this is super important. Okay, what do I mean by going word by word? When you're going for the answer choices, you have to read one word at a time and constantly be thinking after you finish reading the word, you have to be thinking, is this correct so far? Is the answer choice correct so far? Does it seem right so far? And as soon as you find a word that's not what the text says, it's not in the text, then you know, okay, that answer is wrong. You can move on to the next thing. But it's super important that you go word by word. And these 4 things probably don't make complete sense to you right now, but that's okay because I'm going to demonstrate doing these 4 things when solving a question. So basically, out of the College Board's question bank, I just picked the hardest reading comprehension question I could find that I didn't remember the answer to. So this just looks hard. I'm going to solve this. I've probably solved this question before, but I don't remember the answer at all. And it's been a long time for sure, like a few months since I solved this question. So I'm going to solve this for the first time, and you're going to see how I use those 4 things when solving this. And then after the question, I'll go really in depth into why I do these 4 things and like important things to keep in mind. Now, before I solve this question, for you to get the most out of this video, I would highly recommend you pause the video right now and try solving this question on your own, using whatever process you like. You could try using this, or you could just try doing your own thing, and then unpause the video and see how I solve it. That way you can compare how you just did it to how I did it, and that'll give you direct feedback for what you're missing and what you need to implement. And also, it'll allow you to follow along with what I'm doing a lot better if you actually understand what I'm talking about ahead of time. Okay, let's try this. So we're trying to, I always read the question first, by the way, because you want to know what you're reading for. Okay, like you want to, like, this will help you predict the logic of the passage as well. So when most directly support, we're trying to support. But sometimes it says challenge, like a fourth of the time. Actually, maybe a fifth of the time now. It's been getting less. But sometimes it says challenge, but we're trying to support a hypothesis. So I'm thinking it's going to be a study. Okay, it's going to be something about a study. Okay, water flowing around. So right now I'm picturing, it's probably something about a river, or maybe like something that carries water around. And it's going to be like some marine type thing, or like construction stuff around it, obstruction. Okay, so maybe it is like carrying the water around creates vortexes. Oh no, so it's definitely like some kind of stream or river, right, for it to create vortexes, patterns of swirls of varying size. Okay. So there's different sizes. Probably different sizes cause different things. By detecting the vortexes, fish. Okay, we're talking about fish. So definitely some kind of stream or river. Fish can determine the size. Oh, so when the fish detect the vortexes, they determine the size and position. That's pretty cool. So they don't even have to see the obstruction or see the thing in their way. They don't even have to like know that it exists, but they can already tell it exists, and not only tell that it's there, but also tell like how big it is, so they can navigate around it without slowing down or anything. I'm assuming just by feeling the water. That's interesting. So it's probably going to test how it does that, or different stuff to do with that. Testing by these people using models of 3 head shapes. Oh, so head shapes probably corresponds to the ability to determine the size and position of the obstruction. Okay, narrow. So there's narrow low ratio of width to height. So what does that mean? They're more they're longer than they are wide. Yeah, that makes sense. That's what narrow means. Intermediate and wide. So they're really wide. So this is like a swordfish. Actually, I don't know because I think it's the overall body shape. It's really small. It's not just their head. Maybe, but I'm thinking like swordfish and then like hammerhead shark. Okay, that's wide. So right now I'm thinking probably the wide fish is able to predict things better because they have more surface area to like get info. I'm thinking, I don't know. So that for medium size or just like average vortex size, I guess, fish with wide heads would be least able. Oh, that's least able to distinguish between vortexes. So it's actually the opposite. That's interesting. Okay, wider. Yeah, that doesn't make sense. Okay. So they're able to distinguish between vortexes. Oh, so something different here. So before it's like this the size and position of the obstruction, but this is talking about between vortexes and general turbulence. Oh, so it's just like there's not an obstruction, right? It's just like a random thing that have like a random current maybe in the water. They're not able to distinguish between those. Maybe they have too much information. That makes sense. They have too much information, so they can't figure it out because there's such big surface area. They have like a lot of I don't know, receptors on, I don't know. Okay, a second research team. So this is what we're trying to support the hypothesis for. A second research team has therefore hypothesized, so based on this testing, that in low visibility conditions, so when they can't see anything, wider head. So I'm going to predict that's going to say wider head can't follow along very well because they can't distinguish between vortex and general, so they struggle more to navigate in low visibility conditions. Would be less likely, yeah, than narrowheads to it's just to detect obstructions. Okay, yeah. So just really quickly, this is so the answer has to have. Okay, I can't really. I guess I could predict something to do with the answer. Maybe it's like in when it's really dark, like when it's in a dark, when it's at night. Maybe wildhead fish why it's a W, okay, with the W. Whitehead fish hit their heads on obstructions more, like they hit their head this many times, and then narrowhead hit their head less times, right? So whitehead there's more obstructions, and narrowhead there's less. I might talk about a specific fish as well. I could just say, oh, this is a wider head, how many obstructions they hit, and then narrowhead, how many obstructions they hit, and then that would prove it. Okay, yeah. So we're trying to support that. Okay, hopefully you're following along so far. If you're not, you might have to rewatch portions of this video because I want you to understand exactly what the passage like where it's coming from. That way you can follow along with this step too. Okay, I'll go one by one. So let's read A first. Study. I'm going word by word here. Study. So it's like a new study. So because we're trying to find evidence, right? Okay, a study using obstructions. So far it's good. That created medium-sized vortexes. So it's similar to like what they said, medium-sized vortexes in the testing that they first did. And so low visibility, that's good. It does say low visibility conditions. So far it's great. And found that the bristle mouse, so this wider narrow head, which had this wide head, bumped into more than half. That doesn't tell me anything because I need to, again, we're comparing when the answer has to have something to do with wide head going, when wide head hitting more obstructions than narrow head. Okay, wide has more than narrow head when they hit the obstructions, or something to do with like they can't detect the obstructions as well. Okay, but this just says the wide head. It's not comparing the wide head to the narrow head, and that's really obvious. Okay, because I already predicted what the answer should have before I even look at the answer choices. Okay, a study using obstructions. Okay, so far it's okay. That created some medium-sized vortices. I've been saying vortexes, but I think it's vortices. Okay, yeah, in low visibility. So far it's great. Found that some specimens of dusky smooth. So this is probably it's narrowhead. Okay, narrowhead, which is relatively narrow. So this narrowhead fish bumped into obstructions more. No, that's wrong. They should be able to navigate faster. Let me. Yeah, no, it doesn't even compare narrowhead and widehead either. It says the other specimens of the same fish. That doesn't make any sense. Okay. Moving on to C. So I'm extremely confident A, B are wrong. There's no way that they're right because I understood the passage well enough to do that. Okay, a study using obstructions that created medium-sized. So far, like it's the same thing. Just like they all start the same way. So far, it's great. The created medium-sized vortexes. Yeah, that's great. Low visibility conditions found that the wider-headed. Okay, so this wide-head fish bumped into. So far, it's great. More often than the narrow-headed. That's perfect. That's literally the answer. I like almost word for word. I mean, paraphrased a bit, but that's literally the answer I came up with. The only thing in the answer was my answer was I didn't mention medium-sized vortices. Okay, so that's the only difference I think. Like literally word for word, it's what I predicted. And if you get good enough, you'll be able to do that. Like your prediction will be spot on more than 90% of the time, because how good your prediction is based off of how well you're able to understand the text and predict where the logic is going. Okay, D. I'm just gonna make sure that D is wrong. That way I know 100% certain, because I know for sure there's 3 wrong answer choices. Not only that, but there's also only 1 right answer choice. So I like double verified I got the right answer. Okay, a study using obstructions. So far, it's the same thing. Created, yeah, it's the exact same thing as everything else. Okay, found that the narrowhead, got it, bumped into obstructions no, it says just as often as to it should be there should be a difference. The wide head bumps into more than the low head because they can't detect the obstructions as well. Okay, so the answer is C. 100% certainty it's C. Like if the answer is not C, the answer key is wrong. That's how certain I am it's C. And I hope that made sense to you. So just to summarize my process and just to give you some insights, at least from my experience tutoring, what the difference was, and like just to give you some things that I wanted you to realize when I was doing this. Okay, the most important thing about going through when solving a reading comprehension question is you understand the passage correctly, super well, especially for these really hard, like dense scientific reading comprehension questions. There's no getting around it. You have to understand everything perfectly. Okay, you have to understand the passage perfectly, or else there's no way you're going to get the question correctly, because there's going to be something in the passage that you don't understand. And when I was going through the passage, how I was able to understand it perfectly, you notice I never went back. I always understood everything the first time I read it. Okay, and if it took me a while to just understand what I was reading, I would pause there and fully digest it before, like I reset it in my own words and connected it to the rest, and I try to predict what's going to happen next. By doing that, I fully understood it, because not just enough to understand what you're reading. By the way, this is a test I do for a lot of students that I'm tutoring. I see pretty much every single time when I think this is a problem, I always do this with them. Basically, I have them read a passage, like a brand new passage that they didn't remember before. I have them read it, and when they get about 2/3 of the way, I always just scroll down, and so they can't see the passage anymore. And I ask them to recite every single thing that they read so far, at least all the main points that they read so far. And 90% of the time, they can't do it, because they just weren't able to remember what they were understanding. And how do you actually remember? Because it's one thing to understand what you're reading. Like, that's pretty easy. Okay, if you look at this and just to like reframe how you're thinking about these hard passages, is there really any words in here that you don't know? Okay, if you know English, just like a decent moderate level of English, there's pretty much not a single word in here that you wouldn't know. Okay, you know all these words. So why can't you understand this the first time you read it? Generally, why can't you? And it's always because you're just lazy. That's why you can't understand it. Because it's really hard to force yourself to understand something, and not only understand it, but understand how it fits with the rest of the passage. It's really hard to do that. And people just keep on saying they didn't understand, let's say you didn't understand like the first line of what the first line said, and then you just moved on. You didn't actually force yourself to understand it, and you just moved on. And then because you didn't understand the first line, you can't understand the second line, because you need the first line to understand the second line. And you need the second line to understand the third line. And it's just a domino effect of you never understanding anything. And by the time you get to the end here, you finally realize, oh, I didn't understand anything I just read. Let me reread the entire thing. And then you just do the exact same steps over and over again, because you're just always too lazy to properly understand everything. And what you don't realize is it just takes you more time to read the passage. Because versus me, when I'm just reading the passage the first time through and I understand it the first time, maybe I take longer than you to read it the first time. Okay, but I'm able to just read it for the first time. And you notice that when I was going for the answer choices, it was extremely clear to me which answer was wrong. I could go for the answers extremely fast, because I don't have to go back to the passage anymore. I just read the answers and go like, oh yeah, that's wrong. Okay, and I go here, oh that's wrong. And then here, I don't have to go to the passage anymore. I can go to the answers extremely fast. So by just properly understanding the passage. Just take an extra bit of time to make sure that you don't move on from something until you understand it. Just be really hard with yourself. Okay, don't be lazy. Even though you're just giving yourself more work if you do this, but just don't be lazy. Properly understand something, and only once you understood it, for sure, like you'll be able to remember this, you move on to the next thing. And a good way, this is why I want you to predict the passage. Okay, a good way to make sure you properly understood it is predicting the rest of the passage. So every single time, like every single chunk pretty much that I'm reading, I always am trying to understand where the passage is going to go. At least I try to make some kind of prediction. You notice the prediction was wrong sometimes. Like I try to predict this part and I got it wrong. They said it was the opposite. I thought it was narrowhead wouldn't be able to navigate as well, but actually it was the wide head. I got it wrong. But that makes it so much more engaging. Okay, I did not feel bored when I was doing this. And believe me, I hate these at first. Okay, I always hated scientific passages. Like I could not do. I was the guy that reread this 10 times. Okay, like at the beginning, like only like a year ago, I would have to reread this 10 times to just barely understand. And by the way, when you're rereading, the reason why to reread is because you didn't understand something and you just kept on reading, right? So basically, by the time you like reread for the fifth time, you just understand different snippets. You don't actually understand the entire passage still. You just understand different snippets of the passage. And what happens is your brain uses the different pieces of information you do know, and they try to form assumptions. They try to connect them. And you're basically making assumptions, a really loose idea of what the passage says with a bunch of assumptions thrown in. And when you have that mediocre understanding, and you don't even predict your own answer, so you don't have the solidified understanding of what the pastor was saying, you just have like a mediocre, yeah, I kind of understood what the pastor was saying. And then you go for the answer choices are going to eat you alive, okay? Because the answer choices are designed to trick people who don't understand the passage well, especially for the really dense reading comprehension questions, like like the second module, really hard reading comprehension questions. There's pretty much zero chance you're going to get the question right. Because there's a higher chance of you falling for one of the traps, the wrong answer, because they're designed that way for you to think that they're right when you don't understand the passage that well. So the only way you can get these questions perfectly, like for sure, consistently right every single time and as fast as possible, is you just have to understand the passage well every single time. If you're stuck between two answers, it's because you missed something. Either something in the passage or something in the answer choice, and you messed up the process. You didn't chunk properly. You didn't predict the answer passage properly. You didn't go word by word when you're going for you. Oftentimes, you miss one adjective, and that's all it takes for you to eliminate for you to think the answer was right even though it was wrong, or for you to eliminate it even though it was right because you just missed one word in here. Because people read the entire answer choice, and then once they read it, they look back at the answer choice, and when you look back, you miss all the small stuff. Right? I read the entire thing and then I determine if it's right or wrong. You miss all the small things. You miss all the minute adjectives, the one word that was here that you missed because you just thinking of this entire the entire answer choice as one coherent sentence. Versus me and my students, what we do is we go word by word, okay, and we don't miss anything because we literally consider as we read each word, is this correct so far? It makes it literally impossible for you to miss anything because like, is this correct so far according to what I predicted the answer should have and also what the passage was saying? And it's like, oh, that's wrong. I move on. There's no way I miss a word because I literally go word by word and consider each word is what I've read so far correct so far. Okay. Hopefully, like you're understanding this. Okay, there's no way to get around this. You have to understand everything. Okay, I know there's like a lot of tutors would disagree with me. Like there are controversies in this, especially for I by the way I read everything for every single reading comprehension question for transitions, for vocab, for underline, for overall structure, for main idea, for main purpose, for based on the text questions, for support for command and evidence, support the claim questions, for graph questions. I read every single word in the entire passage and every single word in the answer choices every single time. And I fully understand everything, and that's how I'm able to solve it real fast. And I bet you I'm actually able to solve the questions faster than you. Not because I'm able to understand things faster, but because my process is better. Okay, I don't keep on reading even though I didn't understand something. I just make sure I probably understand it, and only then do I move on. And predicting the passage is super important. So there's two stages, right? There's two parts in reading the passage. You not only have to understand what you're reading, but you also have to remember what you're reading and understand how what you read connects to the rest of the passage. Okay, it's one thing you just understand a word, but that's the problem with a lot of students where when they get halfway through the passage and they scroll away and they can't recite anything they read, even though when they were reading, they actually understood what they were reading. The problem there is they actually weren't able to remember what they're reading. And I don't want you to think about it as remembering, because that's annoying. Like, you have to remember different things. No, okay. What I want you to do is just predict the passages. Because in order for you to predict what's gonna happen next for at each chunk. So when I'm reading this chunk, water flowing, I like try to predict it. Oh, it was something about a river, maybe a stream, or like something, maybe it's something about carrying water around. When I read that, I already predicted what's gonna come next. Okay, and there's no way for you to predict your own answer. You not only have to understand that, you not only have to remember what you just read, but you also have to analyze, evaluate, and understand how it fits into the rest of the context of the passage. You have to do so much work in your head that there's no way you won't remember what you just read, as long as you predict what's going to come next. So I used my ability to see if I can predict what's going to come next as like a litmus test to see if I understood the passage well enough. And I promise you, it'll make reading the passage so much more interesting. Like, you genuinely kind of get invested in the passage. Like, I like, believe me, a few months ago, I hated reading science passages, but now it's not that big of a deal. Like, I, I don't feel bored at all when I'm reading this. Obviously, I'd rather be doing something else, but I don't feel bored at all because I'm actually invested when I'm reading. I'm trying to predict, oh, did I get it right or not? Oh, I got it wrong. Interesting. Why is it wrong? And you just keep on going, right? You engage with the passage so much more if you're able to go word by word and predict what's going to come next. And that's also why I predict the answer as well. Not only because predicting your own answer after you finish reading it, it not only makes sure that you understand the passage well, because if you didn't understand the passage well, there's no way you're able to predict your own answer. So by predicting your own answer is to check if you understand the passage well enough to move on to the answer choices. But also, you won't fall in the trap of the wrong answer tricking you anymore. Because when you don't understand the passage that well, you don't have a solidified your own answer, you're just going to go through the answers and say, oh, this seems right. Yeah, this seems right. Because you just have a mediocre understanding passage, and then you read B, this seems right too. And it's like, it's implanting ideas in your head. And this was a big insight I found when I was tutoring students. Back when I was first tutoring the digital SAT, like maybe a year or two ago, the most common mistake that students said they were making was miscomprehending. Right? They were miscomprehending the answer, so they chose the wrong answer choice because they miscomprehended the passage somehow. What are the chances that for you when what you miscomprehended, what you misread, what you made an assumption about, just so happens to match perfectly with one of the answers in here, and for you to pick it? Like, what are the chances that for you to miscomprehend the passage, and just one of the wrong answer choices just so happens to be what exactly you miscomprehended? Okay, you're not actually miscomprehending the passage. Okay, it's because the reason why you got the question wrong, it wasn't because of miscomprehension. It was because you let the answer choices implant ideas in your head. That's where the miscomprehension comes from. It's because you don't have a solidified answer. You reread the passage multiple times, where you skipped over a few words when you're reading it. You didn't actually do proper chunking. You didn't make sure you actually were able to understand the word before you move on to the next thing. You didn't predict the passage, so you actually understood how the words fit into the rest of the passage. You didn't do that. And because you missed a few words in here, your brain was making assumptions. There was like a loose tie between the ideas that you did understand. And then when you read the answer choice, it just so happens to like, oh, that makes sense. Because you don't have an understanding of that passage very well. And this implants ideas. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. And that implants the ideas in your head. So to prevent ideal implanting by the wrong answer choices, what you need to do is solidify your own understanding first by creating your own answer choice. Specifically, at least what the correct answer would have to have. And then you can just compare the answers to what you think the answer should have. Okay, you can predict the answer wrong. Like, there are sometimes when I predict my own answer, I get the question wrong though. I mean, I predict the correct answer incorrectly. Like, I don't get what the correct answer is word by word like I did here. But I'm still able to get the question right. And the only reason why I'm able to do that is because I understand the passage well, and I can go word by word and go, yeah, this is wrong, as I move on. Oh, this is right. Every single word is right. Yeah, that's right. And I eliminate my answers and make sure the right answer is absolutely right to double guarantee I got the question right. And I know it's going to be hard at first. Okay, it's going to be hard to predict what's going to come next. It's going to hurt your brain to predict what's going to come next, to predict your own answer. You might think you can't do it. But if it was easy, everyone would be able to get a 1600. Okay, you have to do the hard thing. You have to not be lazy. And by the way, it's not even hard. Okay, you just do 20 questions. Okay, just do 20, just pull up the question bank, go into SAT question bank, maybe go to one prep, and just pull up 20 really hard, dense reading comprehension questions. I promise you, by the end of those 20 questions, if you actually were practicing predicting what the answer is going to be and predicting the correct answer, it'll become easy for you, because every single time you do it, you just get more used to predicting the right answer. And then what's hard for you, what was hard before, becomes really easy for you, it becomes really natural to you, like it is for me. Okay, I'm just able to predict, and like actually predicting what's coming next is kind of fun at this point because it's done so many times. I'm able to do it just instinctively when I read something. And it's also improved my like general life because I'm able to, like when I in college, I'm able to read passages correctly for the first time because I'm actually like engaging. I know how to read now, and you just didn't know how to read before. Okay, this is how you read. At least on the SAT, this works extremely well. And there's no way to get around it. You just have to understand it. And this is the best way to understand it. Okay. And I promise you, you'll even be able to solve questions faster this way because you don't have to reread stuff. And you have to get the question right now because you're not going to fall for the wrong answers and let the ideas be implanted in your head anymore. And I'm going to warn you right now, about 90% of you who watch this video won't actually change their behavior at all. They'll just keep on doing what they've been doing. Or they'll try this at first and then slowly go back to what they previously were doing. Because what they were previously doing feels better. Like at least at the moment, it's much easier to just keep on reading. It's so much easier to just keep on reading and not actually fully understand what you're reading, but you just keep on reading and just skim over everything. Okay, and then they get the question wrong, and then they have to reread a bunch of times. They go back and forth between answer choices a lot of times because they don't understand the passage well. Okay, they just revert back to their old stuff. This is going to be hard at first. Okay, you have to get used to it, but just actively do this. You have to make sure. Okay, are you, after every 3 words, are you actually predicting the passage? Like, do you fully understand it? And maybe even when you get to the end of a passage, see if you can actually predict, like recite everything from memory, and also predict your own answer. Because if you can do that, you definitely understood it well enough. But a lot of students can't. And I'll tell you also, when people are too focused on doing that for the passes, they forget to go word by word in the answer choice, and they miss words all the time. And that might be why you're getting questions wrong as well. Most of the time, you're just not actually. I call this active reading. Okay, I coined active reading is like its own thing, but I coined this as active reading. Okay, you're reading the passage for a purpose to answer the question. You're actively engaging with the passage. You're not passive reading, where you're just reading just for the sake of understanding it. You're actually engaging with the text when you're reading. There's a huge difference between the two, and you need to stop doing passive reading. And every single time when I have a student solve a question in front of me after I first explained this to them, and they don't do this. Okay, they're still just reading the passage just to understand it. Okay, are you actually predicting what's coming next? I know it's hard. I know it feels like it's going to take longer. Usually, it allows you to solve the question much faster, actually. And for most of you, you shouldn't even be solving these questions in the first place. Okay, you shouldn't even be solving these questions because you should have been prioritizing the easy questions early, and you run out of time before you solve these questions. Your score will actually be even higher if you just forget about these questions entirely, which I have a video on that you can watch on the end screen somewhere in this video. You can click on it right now. But I hope this video helped.